larger than life. He was a big guy, but he was a teddy bear. His goal was to have no friends, but yet he was loved by everyone.
Yeah. He was an extremely hard worker. He always worked 2, sometimes 3 jobs. We didn't want for much. He made sure that we did dance classes, recitals, anything that we wanted. He was active in the schools. He always pushed us to get good grades.
Volunteer firefighter.
Yeah.
He had another part-time job, I guess, at the fire academy in Suffolk County, where he trained the volunteers how to be firemen.
Yeah, his role there was chief of program development, so he actually wrote curriculum teaching other firefighters how to be firefighters. They still use that curriculum today.
It took 2 or 3 men to replace him after 9/11. That's how much he did.
It did. He was definitely more of a, measure twice, cut once type of a person. But yeah, he had a really big laugh, a really big smile. Can definitely be intimidating if you didn't know him in size and in presence. And that's the persona that he wanted to give. But like Kaitlynn said, once you knew him, and he allowed you to see that softer side, he played both ends of the fields that way. But he was great.
He never missed a dance recital. He never missed any school or award we received. He worked so much, but always we were his first priority. Mm-hmm. We don't take family pictures. There's 4 of us. Somebody's always taking the picture. Mm-hmm. He always was the picture taker with the family friends there. They were like, hey, sit down, take a picture. And you could just see everybody's smiles from ear to ear beaming. I think like you and I are laughing in the picture, and a rare family photo of all 4 of us, and it just happened to be the last day together.
Yeah. And the way that the shifts work in the city is you were on a couple days and then off a couple days. So we saw him that day. He left to go to Rescue 3, and then on the 11th he was actually leaving Rescue 3 to go to his job at the fire academy. So he was technically off shift when the alarm went off.
In civilian clothes. He hopped on the rig to be an extra man to help out.
That day, his shift had ended. He had gone out to his truck to leave to go back to Long Island. His truck was blocked in by another firefighter, so he went back into the firehouse to have them move the truck. The alarm went off. He jumped on the rig. Like Kaitlynn said, civilian clothes. The other chauffeur, our dad drove the fire truck. So the other chauffeur for that shift was already there, so there were 2 names on the board. And with the amount of firemen that were there and all the chaos, nobody knew who was where. That one tower went down, all communication went with it. So after the fact, when things were slowly being pieced together, the last communication that they had stated that they were in the South Tower, which was the second tower hit first to come down. And they were in the 60s or 70s.
Their goal was like to get as close to the fire as possible and to assess
the situation with where the plane had hit. And that also made sense because as they began to recover things, the bulk of what they had found from Rescue 3 was all under a stairwell, which made sense because they wouldn't have left the stairwell trying to get up to where the plane was.
And I know a family friend of ours had a voicemail on his home phone that was a pocket dial of my dad on the fire truck, and he said all you heard was siren, like just the adrenaline and the hype. They all were, in a sense, so excited to go to this fire and like so excited to serve their city. And I don't think anybody knew the magnitude of what the day was going to turn out like, but nobody expressed fear in it. Nobody expressed like any worry, but
I think it was just such a shock that there were 2 planes into the trade centers.
Yeah.
And again, the way that those towers were built, nobody anticipated them coming down. I think their biggest issue was what to do with the floors above where the planes hit. But I remember in the hallways between classes, you started to hear rumblings of, a plane flew into the trade center. I remember an announcement coming over the loudspeaker that if you had family that worked in the trade center, you needed to go to the library immediately. And same thing as what Kaitlynn said, a lot of people were like, Lauren, your dad works in the city, like you're going to be able to tell us some really cool stories. I bet he's there. Because even though the trade centers were in Manhattan, every fire department in that city went.
Well, and like you said with Rescue 3, normally you serve your borough, but Rescue 3 serves the entire city because they're so specialized. So they were called, since the building was hit, they were called regardless of their location.
Right.
I think they were like second on the scene.
They got there very quick. I remember when I was called to the library thinking, he doesn't work in the, like, why am I being called down to the library? And my mom was upset. She hadn't been able to get in touch with him. And I was just like, well, no, he's working. Why would you, be able to? And cell phones were still a pretty new thing back then. And I remember just going home and sitting in front of the TV, and the phone was ringing, and it was other people asking, how's Ray? Where's Ray? Other wives. And just watching over and over again the buildings fall and thinking, what's going on? And all you heard overhead were the helicopters and the army copter.
It was
surreal.
Yeah, my experience was a little different, but similar. I think I was in like second or third period, and same thing. I heard the word terrorist attack, and being naive in 12, like,
What does that
I
mean?
never heard that word before. What's a terrorist attack? And I remember somebody raised their hand and said that, and they were like, well, there's bad guys, and they just attacked our country. Like, we're under attack. A war's about to start. And being like, oh my goodness. And same type of situation. If you have parents in New York City, come with us. And I don't know my dad's cell phone number. I don't know his work number. He's a firefighter. He's not going to answer my call. He's going to run into this building and save the people. That's his job. I stayed at school all day. Lauren convinced my mom not to take me home and worry me. So I was one of maybe 2 kids left in my 8th period class. And the highways were shut down on Long Island. We lived on an island, so you had to take a bridge to get in or a tunnel to get in, and you could not get on or off that island that day. And
No. I remember
eerie
that
feelings.
it was eerie, but that night, I guess kind of just a premonition before I had gone to sleep, I remember just saying to my mom that, Daddy's not going to come home, is he? And she had said, we can't talk like that, we can't think like that. And I went to bed, and I woke to, and again, things become so blurry. I have no idea where you were, if you even woke up. I just remember waking up to her screaming.
I remember that.
And she was just in a ball on the floor, and she's like, they were in the building. And that was the first confirmation that we had got that, he was there. And I remember a fireman, I remember Pat coming to the door the next day.
Was it the next day? I don't even
It might not have been the
lost
next day.
track of days. I know I was out of school for 15 days, and from 9/11 till the day I returned to school, it just feels like the longest day of my life. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it wasn't the next day, but I do remember, we each family got assigned a fireman from Rescue 3 that was technically your liaison, and they would update you and do whatever you needed. And I remember Pat coming to the door and telling us that it was no longer a rescue mission. They were not pulling people out alive, that it was a recovery at this point. And
I remember, I don't remember that conversation. I think Lauren was a lot more aware of what was happening in the world than I was, and I every day thank God that I was so naive at 12 years old, because I don't think I'd be as strong as she was during all of this. So I think I was shielded a lot by her and my mom on what was told to me, but I do remember the apartment door opened and you saw like a male's arm come in, and I was like, Daddy's home! And it was the firefighter, Pat, who was our liaison. And I remember he put Daddy's wallet, cell phone, watch, and ring. He was holding them, and they had recovered the fire truck, and those were Daddy's
his
belongings.
duffel bag was the fire truck.
So he was returning those, and I think that's when I lost it and realized.
I don't remember that.
You might not have been there. Like, I don't know where you would have been, but I
didn't spend a lot of time in the apartment afterwards. Anybody who was leaving the apartment, I wanted to go with. I didn't want to be there. I didn't want to sit there. I didn't want to.
It was a lot. People were in and out. Meals. I think we had meals for days, and a revolving door constantly of support and love and concern.
I remember asking about the necklace that he always wore.
Yeah.
His like Maltese cross.
Yep, it was soldered on his neck.
Yeah, and I remember saying, do you think we're going to get that back? And then somebody trying to very delicately explain why we weren't. And then kind of understanding, everything kind of became whole at that point, why we were giving DNA. Like, they were not pulling
Bodies.
out of this.
They actually never recovered him, They, I think, found a few of the men from Rescue 3, if not all the other ones. I'm not sure of that, honestly.
They found his hood, which goes under his helmet to protect, the skin around the face and everything. I know they identified Tom Foley by pins in the knee.
Yeah.
Jerry Strang they found face down, so mostly his back and body was intact, and they found.
But didn't they not find Daddy's hood directly by Rescue 3? They think that maybe he threw it off like a few flights before.
They could have. They found, Mike Healy's wedding band.
Yeah, he didn't work with Rescue 3, but another firefighter that at one time worked with Rescue 3, they found his wedding band and they were able to identify it by being engraved. And it was under the road that they paved to get access to. They needed like the trucks to get in to help clear the debris, so they made a road. And when they eventually picked the road up, they had discovered this wedding ring, like a phenomenal recovery story.
I guess the pockets of, what people got back, and even what things you see in the museum now, papers and people's wallets and subway, stubs and stuff that survived this massive fire and heat and all this debris. It's wild. Yeah.
It's wild to see that this paper was inside a filing cabinet inside this building, somehow made it out of the filing cabinet, out of the burning building, out of the building falling, and you could still read the paper.
Yeah.
It's insane.
The fire department as a whole kind of came together that day, and just really looking out for one another. You always have, as a fireman, you have your team's back and your fellow firefighters, but that day they took us, all on as a family, and it hasn't stopped since.
I know from that moment of that picture to now the 20th anniversary, I feel like the anniversaries get harder because that's how much time has gone by since that picture. That as the time goes on, it's like the last big achievement my dad saw is the Randy Reader certificate I got in 6th grade. And like so much has happened since then, careers and just life in general, and you mourn that now.
Yeah. When the memories don't fade, but the voice in those memories or the laugh in those memories, things like that get a little harder.
We watched a family video years ago still. Yeah. We watched a family video. We both looked at each other and we were like, that's not what we envisioned him sounding like. And
I don't remember his voice sounding like that.
It was a little like punch in the gut of like, wow.
It's been that long since you heard his voice.
Since you heard his voice.
Or his presence, or even, on the same token though, things can bring you right back.
Oh,
when
that smell of smoke.
The smell of smoke, that firehouse smell. But even when we moved, I have a bottle of his Old Spice cologne. So
you do?
Mm-hmm. So when we moved into this house, we've been in our recent house for about a year, and I was unpacking. It still smells like Old Spice. It still smells like him. So how just a single noise or a smell can take you right back to him. So it's very odd how you can be so removed on one end and not remember, but then all of a sudden something can come out of nowhere and you're like,
time's
holy
crazy.
cow.
Time is crazy.
Yeah.
I think personally for me the hardest part is every day that he misses. That 12-year-old Kaitlynn and 32-year-old Kaitlynn. Like if I could go back and tell myself something, would be like just to cherish these moments, because I would take 12 years with him though over none. I would take definitely 12 years.
Before the museum was built and the memorial was built, we didn't go to Ground Zero often. I think we were there maybe twice, October
Big
2001, and then something else. But there are so many memorials on Long Island. We have, his headstone at the cemetery where we buried his hood and some, memorabilia of his. There's Cedar Beach out on the beach.
His hometown.
Yeah, his hometown. The road that was named after him. We have so many other little places that we're able to go where we can.
The World Trade Center wasn't him. That's not where he worked. So to go there, it feels like going into a hospital and sitting at the bed where somebody passed away. So like that.
Yeah.
As big as that day was in our life, like that's not who he was. A hero that was working there that day, but the firehouse brings a lot more comfort. Mm-hmm. These really intimate memorials. I love the Ground Zero Memorial and I love the museum now, but all those years leading up to it being finalized, there was just no comfort in that place. So when I graduated college, I had this desire to run a 5K, and there's what's called the Stephen Siller Foundation. Stephen Siller was a firefighter who lost his life on 9/11. He ran from Brooklyn through the Battery Tunnel to the World Trade Center and lost his life, and he ran it in full bunker gear. So this 5K runs in his footsteps. It's called Tunnel to Towers. So I recruited my mom. One of my friends from college drove down, an aunt joined us. We were a team of maybe 5, and a few of us walked it, a few of us ran it. And then the next year, well, that year my niece was born the day before, so she couldn't participate. So the next year, my brother-in-law and sister joined us, and it went from a team of 5 to a team of 15, and we just realized what the foundation stands for is something that our family really values, giving back to the men and women that are overseas still currently fighting for us, and the ones that have sacrificed life and limb, giving them houses that they can live their lives in now, mortgage free. And it has evolved so much since then, but every year we would do fundraisers for my dad, and I think right before we left New York we were at like $50,000 that we raised, and we were recognized by the foundation for being the top
9/11 fundraising family with no corporate sponsorship.
Yep.
So it was all just money that we had raised on our own. When we relocated to Tennessee, there was no Tunnel to Towers 5K here. They've got them in all different states.
Nationwide.
Yeah. So we had brought it in, was that 2016 or 17, to Brentwood, and we had done it there. And it's so much more to put it on than to actually just participate in it. So it was successful, but just a little too much with a full-time job and full-time family to handle. So it was taken over by Joe Clark and moved to McMinnville, and they've been doing it the past couple of years and have been extremely successful with that. So it's just allowing us, to don our t-shirts and just do something in memory to keep his memory alive. That's always been really big for us.
The t-shirts, we've sold challenge coins that my brother-in-law has made, and it's really cool to see how we're kind of so far removed from New York in the sense of we're all here now, but how people here have taken on to what we do, and
They've kind of just embraced it.
they've embraced it. To see that his name has spread to a whole nother state where people didn't know him, and now the name Meisenheimer is just a name people know.
Yeah, our biggest thing has always just been keeping his memory alive. So however we've been able to do that, whether it's, I've done magazine articles, we've done interviews, the fundraising, the 5K, our biggest thing was just to introduce him to people because, he's not here to do it, and he's such a life force, and there's such a story behind it. When you look at any of the firemen, the police officers, if you were to Google any of their names, there's a story, there's a family that's left behind. So our thing is just to try and keep him alive and introduce him to as many people as possible.
That's the thing. The person might not be here, but the family still is, and the legacy still lives on. So that's important to us and always has been important to us.